Paisans, allow me to take us back to a mere 11 months ago. Inter were getting hung 5-0 by Paris Saint-Germain in Munich, and Inzaghi was on a plane to Saudi. They bring in a spring chicken manager, former badge wearer, in Cristian Chivu, sign a bunch of unproven players in the summer window, and fast forward 8 months from there, that same Inter Milan are now champions of Italy again. Inter Milan have brought the Scudetto back to Milan. They're 21st in the team's history. Paisans, welcome back to Calcio Culture special episode. We are here crowning the Scudetto champs, Inter Milan, after they bring home the title with a 2-0 win at the San Siro against none other than Parma. I am here with my co-host Mats and Vos to break it all down. Vos, Mats, how we doing?
They deserve to win. I mean, I've been talking about it all year. They kind of had it sealed up a while ago. We were just waiting for this to happen. They deserve to win at the end of the day. Nobody else deserved it more than Inter. And I know that hurts you guys a lot, but you can't argue it.
Yeah.
I can argue it if I want. I probably won't, but I could.
That wasn't the question that Logan asked you. He asked you how you were doing. And so I'm going to answer the question pretty fucking terrible. Not happy. The one thing I will say is that, to Vos's point, you saw it coming all season. So we kind of prepared for it. But yeah, not happy about it. Pissed off. Sucks. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. But yeah, that's how I'm doing.
Yeah, this one's a tough one from my perspective. Of course, I'm on the wrong side of the city in terms of who's bringing the trophy home. Like Mats said, saw it coming. I mean, Inter are 12 points clear right now of Napoli. So it wasn't even really a barn burner. We got 3 games left. Inter's a bunch of sleazebags. Like this just, it isn't even fun to root for. Like when Napoli won at least last year, I was kind of hyped for it last day of the season. Napoli kind of bringing some fresh blood. Scott McTominay has his career revived. Lukaku is in the mix again. But no, this Inter Milan squad is full of a bunch of sleazebags. The only thing I'm going to take away for this is that I am happy for Cristian Chivu. It is great to see the young blood come through, some different management from the top. But I'll say it once and I'll never say it again. Congratulations, Inter. That's it.
If you guys didn't pick it up, this episode's solely going to be dedicated to Inter. We'll do a regular episode kind of elsewhere to just go through what happened this year, give them the flowers they deserve for being the Scudetto champions. If you don't already, please follow, subscribe, 5 stars on Spotify. That'd be helpful. Follow us on all our socials at Calcio Culture FC. But with that, ready, guys, to just get into all things Inter here? I know you're not happy about it, but we're going to have to.
Let's get it over with.
All right, first thing that we got to talk about what actually happened this weekend. If you did not watch the game, it was a 2-0 win at the San Siro for Inter against Parma. Goals from Marcus Thuram and Henrikh Mkhitaryan. Might be his last goal ever for Inter Milan. Interesting enough, right? Could be out the door. True. Doesn't really matter. Mats does not care.
No, I mean, we're not talking about an Inter legend here or anything like that. He's barely played this season. He should be out the door, but yeah. He did score.
And that other notable thing in this game, Lautaro Martinez came off the bench, kind of returning from his injury and had an assist and probably should have also scored. But with that, guys, they win the game, clinch the title, 3 matches to go, 12 points clear, like Logan said. This is the first time Inter has clinched at the San Siro in front of their fans since 1989. Chivu wins the title against the club he managed last year to save from relegation, and gets his first title as manager at the club where he also won a treble. Beyond that, this season, Inter Milan has some stats for you guys. First in goals scored. This is as of right now. First in goals scored, 23 more goals than the next, which is Como. 5th in total goals against, 5 total losses on the season so far. And I think this is a really important stat. Of teams outside the top 6, they got 66 of 75 points. And I think that's a really important one because, I mean, they're the only team that was basically beating teams they were supposed to be beating all year. And I think that's really important, and it kind of is going to change the landscape in Italy to some degree. Because I'm comparing this to Allegri. Allegri is a legendary Serie A manager. I just don't think that style of football is going to win you Scudettos anymore based off of this. If this is kind of the standard and you don't need to win the games against those big teams, I just don't know if there's a place for that anymore.
Well, I think it could maybe change the landscape of Italian football in a slightly different way, but still through the stats that you gave out. Winning, we talked about it last season, winning the league is defense, least amount of goals. But if you look at the standings in terms of the Serie A right now, Inter's obviously winning the league. They do not, let up the least amount of goals. They're tied with
They're in
Bologna.
fifth for goals
fifth.
conceded.
Yeah, so that could be maybe something to look at next year and see how the champion or teams higher up the table do, because hopefully it does switch to it's time to score more goals. And Inter, when they won 2 years ago, they were scoring goals, and this year they have the most goals by a long shot. So hopefully that can also change the landscape of Italian football, and it shifts from the best defense to the most amount of goals scored.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then-
I also I don't want to shout myself out here, but didn't they beat Milan at the San Siro to clinch 2 seasons ago? Were we
I
technically
think
the home
you're.
team?
No.
But they were not the home team. They were
Were we technically the home team for that game?
yes, yeah.
So that sucks
Milan
more
were
for
the
us?
home team, and you guys let
Perfect,
them
love it.
clinch. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, that's great. Love it. Awesome. But no, I think it's a great point, folks. I mean, the fact that this just goes to show you got to get your shit done at the bottom of the table. Get your
Yeah.
shit done. Don't fuck around with the bottom of the half of the table. There's no reason to be dropping points sub 10 in terms of the standings. And that just goes, I mean, 9 points. So they played what, 35 games. You've gotten 9 points out of presumably 12 games. Is that what you're trying to tell me? 12 games against the top 6 teams in the table. They've gotten 9 points, but they run away with the fucking league.
I think you're doing your math wrong.
66 points of 75 points. They got
16 points. 16 points from the top of the league. Yeah.
They got 82 points.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they got 66.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know why I wrote a little note 75. I'm just a nod. But yeah, get your shit done on top of the table. At the bottom of the table, you don't have to worry about top of the table. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that was to Chivu's credit. He was able to motivate his guys enough in order to get them fired up and locked in for the lower league games, which is hard to do. Obviously, this weekend kind of showed that in a couple different results, and you see that all the time in the Serie, teams stumbling and teams struggling against a low block, which that's what you go up against when you play a lower league team. And Inter did not struggle, and they, what I like to call, finished their breakfast. But then you look at the flip side of it, and I don't want to harp on it too much because they still were able to win the Scudetto. But you do look at it with kind of a question mark, because they weren't that good in the big games. And then obviously in the Champions League, they didn't do that well either, which are all big games, even if you're playing a lower level team. So that would be kind of the next step, the next evolution for Chivu is now beating the bigger teams, going further in the Champions League. But you can't kind of crap on him. He did a great job. He did a fantastic job this year. So that would be his one Achilles heel, but it didn't matter because he was so good at everything else that they were able to win the league pretty handedly, score the most amount of goals, not let up that many goals. They were the biggest thing about the biggest difference from last year to this year was their ability to stay locked in for 90 minutes. And that goes to mentality, and that mentality goes to being able to beat lower level teams. So that's all credit to Chivu, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think, Mats, you previewed a lot of the things that we need to talk about with them. But outside of Chivu, there was players that also mattered, and some big players stepped up on this team. Looking to kind of wrap up the stats here and go through what actually, this is probably tells a story for the most part. Lautaro Martinez is probably going to win the Coppa Italia. He's leading the race with 16 goals. In second place in that race is Marcus Thuram on 13 goals, who by all accounts had a bad season, and basically everybody's talking about how he didn't have a good season. He has the second most goals in Serie A.
That's what happens when you catch fire at the end of the season.
Beyond that, Lautaro Martinez, Federico DiMarco, and Marcus Thuram round out the top 3 in total goal contributions, which just, again, goes to show you have guys assisting and scoring. Federico DiMarco breaks the Serie A assist record, is probably going to get Serie A MVP. And now Inter, with 3 games to go, have a chance to get 91 points and get tied for 5th all-time points, and doing it again because they did it in 2020 and 2021. So overall, you can't, there's just a dominant season. And I think what you're talking about, Mats, there, it's important that we talk about what happened with Cristian Chivu, what happened with the players this year, where they came short, where they go next is kind of the way that I'm thinking about this conversation. And I think the best place to start to kind of what we've previewed is with Cristian Chivu. With Inzaghi, they did win a Scudetto. Did they win 2 under Inzaghi or just 1? I think just 1, right?
Yeah, I believe just 1.
I'm spacing out on this.
This
now.
is the third Scudetto. They won Conte, Inzaghi, and then Chivu, and then they did win a Coppa Italia under Inzaghi as well.
Yeah, and so to start with Chivu, I think at the beginning of the year, we were all kind of, this could go terribly wrong. And I think most people thought it wasn't the right decision, and it ends up working out really well. He stuck to the 3-5-2, didn't really do a ton of changes. But for you guys, what was the biggest change under Chivu from Inzaghi that allowed this to happen this year?
I mean, it had to be player management, right? They kept the same formation, which of course played into the strengths of this team by and large. But it was just simply the player management. And I think that was something that we talked about all season long, and we harped on it when Inzaghi was screwing it up last year, was that he didn't know how to use the bench, if there even was a bench last year. This year, they did a great job in the summer window, bringing in some younger guys, bringing in some fresher legs, and that gave them the opportunity to rotate. Now, that's just one part of it, bringing in the talent, but to use the talent is a whole nother story. And for Chivu to be able to manage as much as he did through 3 competitions, obviously a tough exit from the Champions League against Bodø Glimt, but to be still here in the Coppa Italia final, to take the Serie, the Scudetto, 3 games before the end of the season. I mean, that comes down to player management and using guys in the right time and playing guys who are hot and maybe not playing the guys that aren't hot. I think he did it incredibly well, figuring out very quickly what the best back line was going to be. That back 3 was pretty astounding down the second half of the season, which was definitely something that he was tinkering with, I should say, through the first half of the season, until he kind of landed on Akanji definitely being the center back, obviously Bastoni off the left, and then Bissek off the right, managing through the fact that Acerbi's getting older. Dumfries was out for a majority of the season. DeMarco, managing him through the fact that he maybe doesn't have the most stamina, but was able to get the most out of him, of course, throughout the entire season. And then I think even on top of that, the rotation of Lautaro, Thuram, Pio Esposito, and Boni was something that books should be written about, because they never took the foot off the gas, no matter what pairing was up top. And I think that's really the biggest difference in terms of play on the pitch versus mentality, is just that up front, there was never a dull moment between the 2 strikers, no matter who it was. And that obviously played into their favor. That obviously played into the massive outscoring they did against the rest of the league. And I think, honestly, that's what happens when you build out that up front, because you can go out and you can play a Verona and play your second string strikers and still put up numbers. And that just all played into the hands of Chivu, and he just played his cards right, and this is where you end up.
Yeah, I agree with Logan. Player management is 1A, and I think 1B is mindset and mentality in terms of just playing for 90 minutes. Every episode last year, we got on and we either said, why is Inzaghi rolling out the same 11? And we said, allows a goal when they're winning in the 80th minute to let them draw and drop points, or lose and drop points. That didn't happen this season. They finished their games out, whether it was 1-0, or they went and killed their game, whether it was 1-0 and they made it 2-0. Interesting stat here. Obviously, we're not done with the season yet, so there still can be some draws for Inter. But last season, Inter had 79 goals for. This right now they have 81, so they've already scored more goals. They allowed 35 goals, so they're 4 less. Now, obviously, there's still some games played, but the major factor, or the major stat here for me, is they had 9 draws compared to this season's 4. And that goes to that 5 games right there that they locked in for the 90 minutes and saw the game out and killed the game off and got the full 3 points, is the reason why they're up 12 points, right? If they didn't do that, and if they draw, and if they have a mental lapse in the 80th minute, like they did so many times last season, this is a neck and neck race right now between Napoli and Inter again. And we saw what happened last year when it was a neck and neck race. So I think 1A is player management, and 1B is mentality and being able to keep the players locked in for the full 90-minute match.
Yeah, one thing that you guys didn't touch on that I think is also important is there were some shifts tactically. Like on paper, it was kind of the same thing, but we did see a more structured approach. I think under Inzaghi, it was more free-flowing. Players could run around, kind of go wherever they want. It was like a little bit chaos, and this was more organized chaos. There was that free rotation, but we saw Bastoni a little bit less high forward. We didn't really see Acerbi or Kanji, whoever it was, like playing striker, even though they're the center back. And I think the team benefit from that. I think especially in the goal category, or goals conceded category, that helped them. And then the other part of it as well, and I think we saw this from the beginning of the season, and kind of what Mats was just saying, alluded to it as well, was his willingness to take risk to go get a win. And at the very beginning of the season, I mean, it must have been in the first 2 or 3 weeks. I think there was a tie game at the San Siro, and he threw on 4 strikers to go and try to get a win. And under Inzaghi, we just would have never seen that. And kind of an interesting question. I don't know what you guys think on this one. If you swapped out Chivu and Inzaghi this year, do you think we have the same result? And I think it's important because, Inter going into the season, on paper, best team in the league again for probably like the 5th season in a row. And I just think it's worth asking. Like, was it Chivu or was it the players?
I have 2 approaches here. Number one, we're going with the mathematical approach. Inter had 81 points last year. Napoli are only able to get to 79. So in theory, yes, Inzaghi does win the league this year. The other take I have here, though, is I think this team was much better. I think this Chivu team was just simply much better, more exciting. Like you said, I mean, I think there's a bit more structure to it. I think that came into the fact that more structure comes with a little bit of less experience there. He needed less room for error, which is where the structure comes from. But honestly, I mean, like just in general, like the league this year was not very strong. If we're just being honest, I think just across the board, not very strong, which kind of changes the outlook of the question. Right. But I think if you're just going to compare the 2 teams, I mean, this Inter was much more entertaining, much more sound, better in the last stretch of games and the season than Inzaghi's.
See, I think that brings up a really interesting point because I'm actually on the other side of things. And one thing that I did want to talk about was actually, so I personally think last year's team was better than this. And
no,
because so the reason I'm saying this is, so they're 12 points clear with a decimated Napoli. Like a fully healthy Napoli, I think this year, they might win it. And I think that's worth talking about. Like, I don't know if this team is any better than they were last year. Because I would say the league as a whole has been probably worse this year, if not the same.
No, it's definitely worse.
But their biggest contender was absolutely decimated. Kind of looking ahead to next year, like they definitely benefited from the rest of the league being bad. Like we can't argue that. And when we look to next year, like assuming Napoli brings back everybody, which is probably not going to happen. But if they had that same team, it's hard to say that like Inter run away with this race. I don't think it happens. And I think that's an interesting question. Like going to next year, I think there's been a lot of talk about, is Chivu even the guy still? And like people are throwing around, maybe they go a different direction. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on. And Inter really did benefit from the rest of the league being not very great, but they did capitalize on that at the same time. So I'm just curious what you guys think there.
I mean, the Napoli injury crisis was obviously tremendously hurtful for their campaign. But let's not forget that this Inter team now has 3 games left to go. They can potentially get to 91 points, like you said. That Napoli squad, where their injuries came into play, obviously Kevin De Bruyne, but he was a new member of the team, which when he did get hurt was kind of better for them, right? They hadn't really figured out how to use him, so he goes down. They play a little bit better. They also just continued to find solutions for the injuries that they had up top. And so they got decimated at the winger, but they always had somebody to bring in, whether it was through the January window or they had somebody on the bench like Vergara. The real problem that Napoli had this year was not necessarily where they had injuries, although Rachmani was out for a bit of the I would say the first quarter of the season, was their center backs, their defense, right? And I don't think that that changes this campaign for Napoli that much, right? Their defense was going to be this way, not as sturdy as it was last year, regardless of those injuries for the most part. So I'm not sure that really comes into play.
Yeah, I kind of think that whether there's injuries or not, like it's not that you can't kind of
hide behind
hold that against Inter. What I'd say is this: the original question was like, does Inzaghi do what Chivu did this season? Do I think he can win the league with this team? Yeah. Do I think he does what Chivu did? Fuck no. Because I don't think we would see Zielinski excel like he has. I don't know if we even would watch Sucic get on the pitch because
Esposito.
Boni, like he refused to go to some of these players. Now I agree with Logan that this team is better because Boni and who do they have last year? Taremi?
Arnautovic and Taremi.
And they weren't.
Maybe Joaquin
Esposito and Boni are better. Sucic is really good. Like he had Kanji is a big ad. So like they definitely
Luis
added
Enrique
pieces.
over Darmian on the right side.
Right.
Yeah, they added pieces, but Chivu was willing to go to them, and Inzaghi never was. So I don't think that Inzaghi would have done what Chivu has done. Do I think he could have won the league this year with the Inter team? Probably, because of all the other external things that you just mentioned, Vos. But do I think Inzaghi would have done as well as Chivu did this year? I don't.
Okay, cool. Well, but they still have to go as a Coppa Italia too at the end of this. And going into that game, I would assume they're heavy favorites. And if Chivu does a double I mean, that's a pretty miraculous first year. And I don't know how me personally, I don't know right now, even if they lose that game, how there's any questions around Cristian Chivu's coming back next year. I don't know if you guys disagree with that, but it's just crazy to me that there's even discussion around
No, I don't think there's a question at all about next year. I think the question becomes during next year, can he show that he evolves and is able to manage through multiple competitions, assuming that he doesn't get this trophy?
To that point, that's where I want to go next with this conversation, because we're talking about them. They're the best team in Italy. It wasn't really close. The rest of the league was worse. They look different. Like they look like they didn't even belong in this league with everybody else, essentially, is how it played out. But in the Champions League,
can I pause you for a second?
Minus
there?
in the top six.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. It's like, did they look that much different against the top teams? No, they dropped 1 million points against top teams. It's just that they got the job done against the dog shit. So did it really look like they were?
Though. That's how you win a league title.
I know, but does it really show that they were that dominant? I don't know.
Yeah, I'd also say
they just got it done at the bottom of the table.
I'd also say, like, what I think 5 weeks ago, it was there was about to be a race. So I don't think now it looks worse than it is than what it's been all season. Inter obviously have had first place for the majority of the season, but they never had it comfortably until like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
They were 10 points clear earlier in the season.
But that's
we were 7 points behind.
The Como game,
up 12.
Them
15.
coming back to beat Como is when they became safe. That was it. But they were down 2-0 in that game. And so during the first half of that game, it's very much like, shit, this is going to be a Scudetto race. Now, credit to them for coming back, and then kind of that was the first nail in the coffin. And then each of the last 3 weeks have been the other nails. And then obviously this one was the final nail. I don't think they ran away with it. Like, this looks worse than it was all season, but I'm not taking anything away from them because they clearly deserve to win, having 82 goals and 31 goals. Like, having a 51 plus goal differential is amazing.
Point being, question I'm trying to get to, they got smoked by Bodø Glimt in the Champions League. Between that and then going to next year, you can kind of assume the league is going to be better. Like, it can't really get worse than it was. So going on to next year, what needs to change for them to compete in Europe, and what needs to change or stay the same for them to compete again and try to win another Scudetto? Because I don't think it can be status quo. I think if they show up next year, same roster, same style of play, I don't think they're necessarily going to get it done. Definitely not going to get it done by this margin, I don't think. And obviously in the Champions League, something does need to change. And I'm not exactly sure what that is, but I'm curious what you guys think, because it's important.
Listen, there's going to be more things than just this that need to change. But Inter's number one issue, number one problem that they need to solve as quickly as possible in the summer window, whether it's in-house or buying someone, is the goalkeeper position. Jan Sommer is not it anymore. He let in a ton of goals that he probably should have saved. He lost them multiple points, not specifically the Bodø Glimt game because they just got played off the pitch, but games against Juventus where Juventus scored 4 goals outside the box. And I can't think of any other ones, but he dropped a lot of points for them. We did see Josep Martinez feature in the Coppa Italia, and he had the most saves by an Inter goalie, and I forget how long. So maybe it's him. Maybe they go invest somewhere else, but problem number one is going to be Jan Sommer. And then they're going to have to, and then I actually think number 2 would be, as good as he is, like Federico DiMarco has his limitations. And yes, we saw him play the 90 minutes, but then we saw him really fall out of form in the last 3 months of the season. So maybe finding another left wing back who can fill in and you don't take a step back when he comes off the pitch, because he's so much of their offense, breaking the assist record, that when he's not in form, they did struggle without him. And I think those are the 2 areas for me where I would reinforce, but definitely the goalkeeper.
I agree. I think goalkeeper is definitely number 1. We talked about that in our season preview, that Jan Sommer wasn't it, and that Chivu was maybe not going to change goalie as like his first big move of the roster. But Josep Martinez is for sure a starting caliber keeper in this league, in my opinion. I think he's shown that on multiple occasions. Now, they are linked to Vicario from Tottenham. I think that deal will get done. And Vicario is one of the best shot stoppers in the world, although they don't solve the problem that goes underrated in the fact that Jan Sommer is one of the shortest goalkeepers, if not the shortest goalkeeper in the league. And Vicario is not much taller. And so that still kind of brings in that same issue of can he even reach most of the net? That's literally a problem. That is not. I'm not making a joke. That is a problem. In any case, the next thing I'm looking at is the back line, and Akanji's getting older. Bastoni's still a young and spry, and Bissek is still young. But I think that they need to they need to bring more youth and more legs to the back line in general. A bruiser with legs is kind of somebody that they need to focus on, right? Because they lean on Akanji, they lean on Cherby, they lean on that profile of player in the middle of the pitch. They need someone to bring in younger, but I think the youth thing is a problem throughout the entire roster. And if they
Yeah.
solve, I think, but that kind of goes to your point, Mats. They just need to make sure that their top players are on the pitch for most of the game in those big situations. They can't have to rotate because someone's legs are giving out. They have to be able to be in every big moment to play better in those other tournaments outside of Serie.
They do need to, and I think Logs, that's a fantastic point. They need to get younger in areas because they're in their window right now. That's win now, but their average age is the oldest in the Serie A, and what they don't want to have happen is what happened to Juventus after
Right.
their window of just totally falling off a cliff and have not been able to climb the mountain again. They need to usher in the next gen of players, which I think they have some players around like
Sucic
and
Pio,
Esposito, Boni, but they gotta continue to do that. So that's a great point, Lokes.
Yeah. I mean, I think you guys nailed it. I think on the defense, Lokes, I really like that point. I think what this season really showed is Bastoni has question marks, I think, for the first time. And I think there's question marks even if he's going to stay at this point. And then on the Bissek side of things, I'm still not convinced Bissek is a starting 11 guy for like 5-6 years, Like, I think those are two legitimate question areas. Granted, I'm not going to sit here and say get rid of Bastoni because he's not good. But it's legitimate that there are questions. He did not have a good season. Carlos Augusto played center back a ton this year. I think more than last year, I would definitely say. And I think that's an area they have to look in. And if you think about it, like on paper, their best 11, Bissek is probably their weakest player, I would say. So it just makes sense to kind of upgrade there.
Well, and when you're
Summer,
a team like
Summer.
Well, yes, I think Summer and then you go Bissek there. When you're a team like this, like Inter, we are talking about margins.
Yeah,
when
definitely.
you're making improvements. So is Bissek starting on 15 of the 20 teams in this league? Certainly. Could you make arguments for more than 15 teams? Of course. Is he going to add value to other teams in other top 5 leagues? 100%. But when you're talking about how to improve the Scudetto winning team who put up 82 goals and gave up 31, like you're talking about margins. So it is a weird argument to be making that Bissek is like the guy that you're really pointing at. But
right.
when you have at this point you have the luxuries of being like, yeah, like we need to upgrade our $35 million valued center back. That's our worst problem. So
I think that the one other problem that I think is very, very important that they do address is Hakan. When Hakan doesn't play, this team struggles. And they've tried Sucic in that spot. They've tried Zielinski. Barella was decent in it and then kind of fell off. He has come up with some massive goals this year. And on top of that, like, they just do not play as well without him. And they don't have somebody that can rotate in there yet. And I think that's a really big area, especially given that he is not getting any younger. And at some point, he's going to have to take a step back. He hasn't really. Since he's been on Inter, he has been like a top 3 player on the team every single year. And at some point, I would expect that to not be happening anymore.
But that goes to Motz's point, though. It's the same issue that they have with DeMarco. They have such key man risk in this team that it's you can't just play the same style once you get the guy off the pitch. So you need to be able to get younger guys that play that specific style so they can stay on the whole team.
Yeah, it's tough. And I know I said it earlier with DeMarco, like, because he provided 18 assists. Like, it's his highest. You're not going to replace DeMarco with a player. Like, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to replace Hakan with a player. Like, these players are so good, but you just got to find someone that can plug in every now and then and give you a good run of games. And one thing I will say in terms of why I think they didn't necessarily run away with it is because Hakan, although he had a great year, was in and out of the lineup this year. And you could feel his presence missed when he was not on the pitch. So I agree, Bose. That's a very good point.
Any last points, guys, on Inter before we wrap here?
Congrats. Yes.
Mods, now that I'm assuming.
No, I mean, listen, they had a great year. They're a good team. I guess I want one more question from you guys. I'm trying to think of how to word this question.
Take your time. We got until next season.
The question is around like their dynasty. Like this is obviously this is obviously like their winning window, right? They haven't won a ton, but they've won a very good amount, right? So like, are we what are they? Is this a dynasty? Do they need to win more for it to be a dynasty? Like, what are your guys' thoughts there?
I think it's definitely a dynasty because I think in the last 6 years, this is 3 Scudettos, 2 Champions League finals, although they didn't win them, and then a Coppa Italia mixed in there, and maybe a Coppa Italia now. I think what's crazy about it, like if you just look at that's a haul. You went 50% of the league titles of Coppa Italia, you got to 2 Champions League finals, but it's the losses that stand out more because I mean. Last year, I think, was a little bit different. I think Napoli was definitely with them last year. But that being said, they were better than Napoli. And if you go through the whole years, you should probably they should have won 5. And I don't think that is like a crazy statement. That's just the reality of it. They lost 2 Scudettos and they have nobody to blame but themselves. And we should be here. And this is the 5th Scudetto of this run, and it's not. And I think that's always going to be there.
So to kind of piggyback on the question, I'm obviously not an Inter fan. Logan's obviously not an Inter fan. You're not an Inter fan, but you like kind of are. I don't know. You support everybody.
Bose is a bum.
So my question is, let's say
I'm the Jesus of soccer.
Say for whatever. This is just a made up scenario here. This is the end of Inter's window, right? They can't retain a lot of talent. They sell Bastoni, Lautaro leaves, Thuram leaves. They end up in a cycle that they were in this cycle. As an Inter fan, are you satisfied with what was done during?
No. Well, and that's why that's why it doesn't feel like a dynasty, because no, I'm not satisfied. And to everything Vos just said, like, this doesn't feel like complete domination, which is what I would attribute to a true dynasty. This doesn't feel that way. And even though, like, I'll like put it with Real Madrid. Real Madrid won 3 Champions Leagues in a row and came in second in La Liga every year, for that matter, right? Like that feels more. They come in third.
I think they won a treble one year.
All right, so they had a La Liga in that, but it's the consistency across seasons that truly makes the dynasty. Inter just haven't had that true consistent domination over the years, in my opinion. And again, it is those losses. It's the losses that really hurt more than I would even celebrate the wins. Like, so net, you're down.
Yeah, I would say that the other piece of this that I do think is important is this kind of Inter Milan ushered in the post-Juve era. It was Juve dominating for a very long time, and I think without the rise of Inter, the way we've seen it, like that probably doesn't end. Juve were this, right? But and nobody was close in terms of being able to recruit players, to make runs in the Champions League, all of those things. And Inter being this good over the course of the last 6 years has kind of pushed Juve down, because even in the years where like a Napoli won, Inter was still there, and they became the dominant superpower. And I don't know if it's going to continue, to your point, Mats. I think that we're closer to this window being over than we are of it continuing, if that makes sense, right? I think that their best players, for the most part, have come and gone. I mean, we look at Lautaro. Lautaro every year is kind of linked away, and it's weird that it keeps happening. Bastoni's linked away. We saw Barella take a very big step back this year. And you look throughout the team they're closer to the end than they are the beginning.
Yeah, I don't think their best players have come and gone, but their best players have hit their peak, and they're on the back 9 for sure.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree. I do want to quickly answer my own question. I do think it is a dynasty because, what to Vos's point, 3 in 6 years, I don't like. It's a haul.
That's great.
2 Champions League finals, maybe 2 Copas, a couple.
Got your 20th. I think that's also important.
And I think that this being on the back of an unheard of run of 9 in a row is what kind of puts a shadow over it, because Juventus's reign was like they didn't lose. But I do agree that the law, like, you could have gotten way more from this window than what you did. But this has to be considered a dynasty. If this isn't, I
Yeah.
don't know. The only thing that can be a dynasty then is 5 years, 5 Scudettos, which
Yeah.
is just like that's
Yeah.
not a like, yeah.
Yeah, that's not a realistic barometer.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that's it on Inter. They're the champions. They deserved it. They were the best team in Italy. They've got 3 more games to play. We'll see what they do, but they are going to be hoisting the Scudetto at the end of the year. And that's it for us. Congratulations, Inter. Mots, take us away.
Paisanos, it's been a fun season, although we still have 3 games left, so let me not sign off the Serie season so far. Congrats to Inter, Scudetto champs. They deserved it. Do not be a Gagoots and Forza Calcio culture.